If you're sitting in Britain right now thinking this is still just another war happening somewhere else, I don't think that works anymore. Because when the UK starts moving military assets, when Europe starts stacking warships in the Eastern Mediterranean, and when oil markets get hit hard enough for emergency reserves to be released on a historic scale, you're no longer looking at something distant. You're looking at a conflict that is already sending pressure back towards home. Welcome back to Charlie Survival. Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe and comment below if you feel like the world has shifted in the last couple of weeks and ordinary people in Britain need to start paying much closer attention. Now, let me be clear from the start, I'm not saying World War III has officially begun. I'm not here to slap a dramatic label on this just for clicks, but I am asking a serious question that a lot of people are quietly asking themselves right now. Are we watching the kind of chain reaction that world wars begin with? Because history doesn't always arrive with one clean headline. Sometimes it starts with a conflict that looks regional, then energy gets hit, then shipping gets disrupted, then more countries start moving assets. And before long, governments are reacting like the fallout could spread far beyond the original battlefield. And that is why this matters to us here in Britain, because for most people this won't feel real when they hear about missiles or maps or navy deployments. It will feel real when it shows up in fuel prices, food costs, mortgage rates, shipping disruption, business nerves, and that general sense that the country is becoming more fragile and more exposed. That is the Charlie Survival angle, not fantasy, not doom for the sake of it, just a simple question. If this keeps escalating, what does it mean for normal households here in the UK? The first reason people are even using the phrase World War is because this conflict is clearly wider than one isolated exchange. On March 3rd, the UK government announced that HMS Dragon would head to the Eastern Mediterranean, alongside Wildcat helicopters with counter-drone capabilities, after British forces had already been involved in intercepting drones in the region. The government also said RAF F-35 shot down drones over Jordan, a British counter-drone unit neutralised drones in Iraq airspace, and a Typhoon operating with the joint UK-Qatar squadron shot down an Iranian one-way attack drone heading towards Qatar. That means Britain is not just watching, Britain is already taking defensive action. And Britain is not the only country repositioning. Reuters reported on March 10th that Western nations have significantly boosted their military presence in the Eastern Mediterranean. France sent the Charles de Gaulle carrier strike group. Germany moved a frigate into the Cypriot region. Greece deployed frigates, fighter jets and the Patriot missile system. Italy, Spain and the Netherlands were also part of the naval build-up. That is exactly the kind of picture that makes ordinary people start asking, hang on, how many countries are now getting pulled into the edges of this? Then you move from the military side to the energy side, and this is where things get even more serious for Britain. On March 11th, the International Energy Agency said its member countries would release 400 million barrels from energy reserves, the largest coordinated stock release in the organisation's history, because the conflict had caused a massive disruption to oil markets. The IEA said oil exports moving through the Strait of Hormuz had dropped to less than 10% of pre-conflict levels, and that around 20 million barrels per day had moved through the strait in 2025, roughly a quarter of the world's seaborne oil trade. That is not a minor ripple, that is pressure on the most important choke points in the global economy, and when that happens, Britain feels it. Reuters reports that the UK is considered especially vulnerable to this kind of shock because of its exposure to imported gas and limited fiscal room. Then, March 13th, Reuters said the UK economy showed zero growth in January, effectively flat since June 2025, even before the latest Iran war energy shock fully landed. So, Britain was already economically shaken before this fresh pressure arrived. That matters because a country that is already wobbling feels every external shock much harder. This is the part I think most people miss. Even if this never becomes a world war, Britain is already reacting like the fallout cloud hits home. On March 13th, the government announced a crackdown on fuel profiteering. Rachel Reeves and Ed Miliband called in fuel bosses to Downing Street, asked the Competitions and Markets Authority to stay on high alert, and warned they would not tolerate unjustified price rises in petrol, diesel and heating oil. The government government said pump prices have been ranging from £1.27 to £1.80 per litre between forecourts. Let me just say this, if you want to see the practical items I think are worth having in a normal British home when things feel unstable, lighting, water, food basics, backup, power, radios, all the simple stuff, check out my Charlie Survival Amazon kit list linked in the description. And also download my free blackout checklist from the pinned comment. It costs nothing, it's genuinely useful, and anyone who downloads it will also be the first to hear about my upcoming course, the UK Crisis Readiness System. That course is being built specifically for realistic British preparedness. So before many people have even processed the war itself, Britain is already scrambling over what it could do to costs at home. And it doesn't stop there. Reuters reported on March 10th that UK lenders withdrew 308 mortgage products in a single day, the biggest one-day pullback since the mini-budget turmoil in 2022, as energy prices jumped and UK borrowing costs moved higher. Think about that, a war in the Middle East and mortgage products begin disappearing from the British market. That is how fast a geopolitical crisis can move from the television screen into ordinary financial life. That is why I keep saying the real danger for most households is not usually some dramatic movie scene, it is the chain reaction. It's delays, shortages, price spikes, anxiety, policy shifts, and people realising too late that they assumed normality would just hold. That is what preparedness really is about, seeing pressure early, understanding what matters, and acting while things still feel calm enough to think clearly. Now, with all that said, we also still need to stay grounded because there is still a big difference between a widening regional war and a world war, and I think it is important not to blur that line too early. One reason I am cautious is because the situation around the Strait of Hormuz is tense, but not cleanly settled. On the one hand, the IEA says flows have been massively disrupted. On the other hand, Reuters reported on March 12th that Iran's UN envoy said Tehran was not going to close the strait outright, even while insisting Iran has the right to preserve security there. That tells you something important. The danger is real, but the signalling is mixed, and mixed signalling is exactly what makes moments like this so volatile. That is what makes this so unsettling. It's not fully escalated, but it is clearly not under control either. Governments are moving assets, markets are reacting, energy systems are under pressure, but at the same time, key players are still trying to avoid saying the kind of thing that closes off all room for de-escalation. That middle space where everyone is posturing, repositioning and testing limits is often where miscalculation becomes most dangerous. And there is another reason the phase world war keeps creeping in. Once one major conflict starts absorbing military attention and economic capacity, other flashpoints suddenly look more dangerous too. Reuters reported earlier this month that US allies in Asia, including Japan, South Korea and Taiwan, were worried a prolonged Iran war could sap US naval assets and munitions needed to deter China. That doesn't mean another front is about to open tomorrow, but it does show how one war in one region can start changing the calculations of governments thousands of miles away. Then there is the domestic tension side here in Britain. Reuters reported on March 11th that police banned the annual pro-Iranian Al-Quds March in London because of extreme tension. The first time in 14 years that this ban power had been used. That doesn't mean the UK is collapsing, but it does show that this conflict is already creating pressure inside Britain as well as outside it. Even when a war starts far away, the political, economic and social aftershocks never stay neatly contained. So here's my honest take. I do not think it is accurate today to say World War III has definitely started, but I do think it is accurate to say that we are in one of those moments where a regional war is colliding with global shipping, global energy, global finance and wider military positioning all at once. And that combination is exactly why so many people feel like the world has become more dangerous, more connected and more unstable over a very short space of time. And if you are in Britain, the most useful thing is not to argue endlessly over the label. The most useful thing is to ask, what signs should I actually watch for? For me, there are four. First, the oil and gas flows stay badly disrupted for longer, because that feeds directly into fuel, inflation and household costs. Second, the more British and European military assets move into the region, because that tells you the governments are preparing for something more prolonged than they may be saying publicly. Third, does the financial knock-on effects accelerate? More mortgage repricing, more energy intervention, more talk of support. And fourth, does another major threat start heating up while all of this is happening? Because that is when the phrase World War stops sounding dramatic and starts sounding descriptive. So the title of this video, my answer is not officially, not yet, But this is absolutely the kind of moment that makes normal people ask that question. Because Britain is already moving assets, Britain is already reacting to fuel pressure, Britain is already seeing financial tremors, Britain is already being forced to think about what happens when a conflict far away starts leaking into everyday life here at home. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you know what I believe. You do not prepare because you think every headline becomes catastrophic. You prepare because calm, early, sensible action is always better than panic. If you want more grounded UK focused videos that cut through the noise and focus on what actually matters for ordinary people here in Britain, hit like, hype and subscribe to Charlie Survival. And if you haven't already, check out my Charlie Survival Amazon kit list in the description. Download the free blackout checklist from the pinned comment, and if you do, you'll also be the first to hear about my upcoming UK Crisis Readiness course when it comes out soon. Comment below a way that you are preparing for this and click this video on screen now to dive deeper into the oil crisis here in the UK. Click it and I'll see you over there.